Okay, good evening. Good evening, everyone. We're on our second week. Our second week of the Megillat Esther series, four-week series. I actually, as I'm looking it over, I think we could probably use even more weeks. It's really such a beautiful, Megillah. We won't, because our last Thursday, the coming up night is going to be, that following Monday night is going to be Purim, and then but the following Thursday you're all done with Purim. So at that point, or we're gonna start thinking about Pesach. But anyway, it's really very beautiful story. There's so much to unpack. Last week we went through the intro. We went through Achashverosh becoming the king. Achashverosh became the king. We spoke about his lavish party, who he invited, the affairs of that night with Vashti. He asked Vashti to come in her crown to parade in front of the party. She said no. And as we spoke about, there was a law passed that, first of all, she was dethroned. Vashti was no longer allowed to be the queen. Chazal tell us that he actually had her killed. And he then, the next morning, woke up and said, "Where's Vashti?" And then he realizes, okay, he needs a new queen now. So his advisors came up with this idea of having the most extravagant, or I don't know if extravagant is the word, but the most widespread beauty pageant maybe ever in history, because he's the king of the world and now he has access to every woman in the world. And not just that, but he also by force brought the woman to him to see who he wanted to make his new queen. So this is something that we did last week, and that's where we really left off at this beginning of the second chapter. So if you have the art scrolls, this is in the blue art scroll. If anyone has it, if you want, there's more copies outside, but it's in the stone edition. It's on page 1252. They have the Hebrew and English here. So I'm going to read starting from the second chapter, where it tells us that he now is going to come up with this beauty pageant, right? Beauty pageant is more of like an innocent term for it, as we spoke about last time, because unfortunately, I brought a commentary, the Ibn Ezra, that explained that this was a lot more than that, where a woman who would be with the king, I'll read to you what the Ibn Ezra says. He says that essentially what happened was that he would get to know each woman. So each woman would come into a place to prepare to see him, almost like a staging place, where it took them a year to prepare. And then the girl would come see him, would be with him for the night. And then the next day she would be sent to a second house. The Pasuk calls it El Bet Hanashim Sheni, the second one. And over there was someone else that their job was to like almost keep her there. And the only way she would get out is if the king asked for her, right? And so there's an Ibn Ezra here that says, the reason why there needed to be like a guard there is after the king was with her, no one else is allowed to be with her, because it's a disgrace for the king for regular Joe Schmo to be able to go with the same woman that the king was with. So this was, unfortunately, it was like a murder situation, taking a woman, taking advantage of her, and the only way out would be is if she becomes a queen. Either she's a queen or she's imprisoned there forever. Not everyone says this, but this is what our sages say. This is what the Ibn Ezra says. So it's like a terrible thing. Okay, now we get to introduce to the character of Mordechai. So this is the second chapter, Parak Bet, line 5. It says, Ish Yehudi haya b'Shushan habira. In the capital city of Shushan, there was a Jewish man, right? And so we just take it for granted, like, yeah, of course, Mordechai. But his placement is very important, that he happened to, like, let's say you said there's a Jew in America. Well, yeah, there's a Jew in America, but no, there's a Jew who's in Washington, D.C., who is living very close to where the king is, and that's going to be very important because of his access to the king. And the fact that he's there is a very important detail. So there was a Jew, his name was Mordechai, ben Yair, his father's name was Yair, ben Shim'i, his grandfather's name was Shim'i, ben Kish, and his great-grandfather's name was Kish, Ish Yemini. Ish Yemini means he's a man from the tribe of Binyamin. Very good. So the Gemara says, hold on a second. When you say Ish Yehudi, to me that sounds like you're from Shevet Yehuda. You say Ish Yemini, sounds you're like from Shevet Binyamin. Yemini is Binyamin, Yehudi is Yehuda. So the Gemara goes through different answers and basically says, well, first of all, we know that his father is from Binyamin. Kish was, like I mentioned this at the end of last week, Kish actually was the same name of Shaul HaMelech's father. And Shaul was from Shevet Binyamin. That king was from Shevet Binyamin. He was the first king of the Jewish people. Who was the first king of the Jewish people? Shaul ben Kish. So either we're talking about the same Kish, although the timing wouldn't work. So maybe you could say it's like a ... right? When we're saying Mordechai is the son of Yair, the son of Shimei, ... go back 1,000 years, the family of Kish, meaning that family was the same family as Shaul HaMelech. I have a friend who his great grandfather is from Rashi. Rashi is a famous commentary from France. And it's like he has like a whole paper because like you go all the way up. But like the main thing is like if I'm going to tell you I have a friend I'm not going to tell you I have a friend whose father is this and this and this. I'm just going to jump straight to the main character and say Rashi. The same idea. The Kish character is important. We know he's from Shevet Binyamin. So why does he call him a Yehudi? One answer the Gemara says is because his mom was from Shevet Yehuda. So he's like both. He's from Binyamin from his dad and Yehuda from his mom. The others say no, Yehudi is a term that's used for every Jew, which, I mean, we all know that, right? Everyone knows that a Yehudi is a Jew. I mean, it has the whole world. The word Jew is like from Judah, right? What do they call him? Yehud. Even the Arabs, they call us Yehuda. It's called a Jew. But this is the source. The Gemara is like, in the Talmud is saying Yehudi is a generic term for Jews. So look at that. This is the source in the Gemara where it says it. So it tells us that Asher Hoglam Yerushalayim, he was exiled from Yerushalayim. So we're now learning something about how old he must be. I spoke about this last time, the time period when the Babylonians came and took over the reign. When the Babylonians came, the name of the king, what was the name of the Babylonian king that destroyed the Beit HaMikdash? Very good, Nebuchadnezzar. He was the first Babylonian king to take over the Jewish people. So when he came, and he was very powerful, he killed tons of Jews. And now what we're learning about Mordechai is that he was exiled from the times of Nebuchadnezzar. Based on what our sages tell us, is the whole story of Purim is happening like some 70 years later. So Mordechai, I mean, how old was he when he was exiled? Minimum, he was like, what, 3 years old, 4 years old, if you want to say that he was a baby when he was exiled. So Mordechai is an elder man. He has to be at least 7 years old. And it's telling us, Asher Hoglam Yerushalayim, Im HaGola, Asher Hoglata, Im Yechonia Melech Yehuda, Asher Hogla Nebuchadnezzar Melech Bavel. Nebuchadnezzar kicked him out. So very interesting, because he was one of the people that actually may have seen the first Beit HaMikdash and was destroyed, and he views himself as a leader of the Jewish people. The next line tells us that he basically raised Hadassah. Vahi omen et Hadassah. Anyone named Hadassah here? Hadassah. Vahi omen et Hadassah. He raised Hadassah. He Esther. She's also Esther. So like, which one is she? Is she Hadassah or is she Esther? So this is very simple. Esther seems to be her Persian name, and Hadassah seems to be her Jewish Hebrew name. Hadass, what's a Hadass? I think we have a picture of it here. It's on God's hand over there, not God, Shevet Gad. It's like what you have lulav, etrog, hadass, and arava. Hadass is the myrtle. It's the one that has a nice smell. Hadassah is the female form of a myrtle. So her name, she had a Hebrew name, and it was like a name like a flower or some sort of a plant. That was her Hebrew name. Esther sounds like it's more of a Persian name. So she had a Persian name. They lived in Shushan. Remember, Mordechai and Esther lived in Shushan, so she had her Persian name. She also had her Hebrew name. The Gemara then goes through all different things. It says, no, actually her name was this, her name was that. Istehar, Sahara, it sounds like she was named after the moon because everyone thought she was beautiful from all over the world. The Gemara is going to tell us that actually, I'll say, quoting further on, that Esther, the Gemara says something amazing, that her name was actually Esther. Her name wasn't Hadassah. So why did they call her Hadassah? Because she was green. This is what the Gemara says. She was green like a Hadassah. So this is really funny. Because when you read this with like an Ashkenazi, it's green, what does he think? He thinks Princess Fiona. Like what does green mean? How is that like a nice thing? The princess was like green. But I guess you could say it's olive color, but I guess in Farsi they say it's like a sabzeh type of dark skin color. So she was Persian, like it's not a secret. She had like this sabzeh, like this dark skin color, and that's why they called her Hadassah. That's what one of the opinions of the Gemara is. Point is, most likely she just had two names, but the Gemara is like saying, well, why was she named this? Why was she named that? Very interesting Gemara there. Okay, now it tells us some. Yeah, sure. Okay, exactly, very good. So what the Gemara says is that Vati Esther noset chen be'enei kol ro'eha. That I think you mean an aura of chen, of grace. Like she had like this grace to her. And the Gemara does discuss what that means. And it's exactly what the Gemara says, that there was something unique about her that everyone who saw her thought she was beautiful. And so the Talmud asks like how that's possible. And it says that she had this unique look that everyone felt that she was from their country. And that's actually fits with the line because we actually don't know what her nationality, or Achashverosh doesn't know what her nationality is. If she looked like a certain nationality, then you can't really keep it a secret. So the Gemara basically says, well, we know that she was able to hide her nationality. And the fact that she was able to hide her nationality fits well with the fact that everyone thought she was beautiful. And the Gemara basically says how because everyone felt some sort of a familiarity to her is one of the things that the Gemara says. Okay. Now, this is sad. It says that he raised her in line 7. He raised Hadassah, Esther, bat dodo, his cousin. She didn't have a father, she didn't have a mother. So the Gemara jumps on this and says, let's teach you biology. This is not how it works. What do you mean she didn't have a father and a mother? She must have had a father and a mother. The Gemara says, yeah, obviously. But she never had a father or a mother because her father died when her mom was pregnant. And her mom died at labor. So she like never had a moment of having a parent. That's how the Gemara understands it. And so that's why her cousin, Mordechai, who is seemingly is an older man, adopts her to take care of her. When her parents died, Mordechai took her as a daughter. So that's the simple line here. It says daughter. I will say that the Talmud does explain that they were married. Makes sense. Cousin, family, they got married. But the Gemara, there's the reason why the Gemara says it, but what I want to point out is like it doesn't say that in the text. It doesn't say that they're married in the text. Although I think I mentioned this last time. If they were married, it wouldn't write it in the text because she's the queen. And this book is being published by the Persian kingdom. And Achashverosh reads it, or at least he had someone read it. And if it would have said in there like they're married, he wouldn't be okay with that. So the fact that the Talmud says they're married, it has a source for it, but part of the reason why it says that is because it's saying, well, there's no way it could have told us that they were actually married, and he uses this word that he takes her as a daughter, and this word daughter is used elsewhere, and in that context it's meant for someone that's married, so it makes that connection. Okay, some people don't like this. Okay, you don't have to believe it, but I'm just presenting what Chazal tells us. Okay, so now the reason obviously it's telling us this, that she's beautiful, is because it's going to be an important fact. Because as all of the ladies are being prepared to go to the king, Esther is going to be one of them. And this is like Batilakach Esther. She's like forced to go. They didn't have a choice. So one thing that's very important is that the Megillah tells us, Lo higida Esther tamavet mevata. I jumped to line 10. That Esther didn't say her nationality. Ki Mordechai tziva alei asher lo tagid, because Mordechai told her not to. Simple as that. It doesn't tell us details as to why. We could come up with some presumptions as to why he would want to hide it. One of the reasons why could be people hated Jews. It's the Jewish people could have been an inferior race, and surprise, very soon there's actually going to be a mass genocide against the Jewish people. So it's not like the Jewish people were this very popular nation. So Esther, what Mordechai realized is any woman that's going to go see the king now, her fate is one of two. Either she gets locked up for the rest of her life, or she becomes the queen. it would much rather that she doesn't go through this. But once she's going there, Mordechai felt, let's give her the best chance possible to become the queen. And if Esther is the queen, there's going to be advantages for the Jewish people. And he was right. That could be one of the reasons why he hid the fact that she was Jewish. It could be, or he asked her to hide the fact that she was Jewish. What this is amazing is that it then describes how every woman would ask what she wanted. I actually saw there's a movie that's there's like a movie of the depiction of the book. I think the movie is called Esther. I'm pretty sure. I mean, it's a fitting name, right? So I think, and it shows how this woman wants this dress, this woman wants this jewelry, this woman wanted the most massive pieces of jewelry in the world, and they gave it to her. Whatever the woman wanted, they gave it to her, right? It was just a rental. It was like a rent the runway. One night you could wear whatever you want. The next day they're going to take it away from you anyway. So they would give the woman whatever they wanted. And when it came to Esther's turn, a guy said, "What do you want?" She said, "I don't care, nothing." She walked in simple, probably the same clothes she walked in with, nothing special, no jewelry, no extravagant makeup. She didn't care for it. And maybe that was what was attractive to Achashverosh. Maybe he thought she wasn't trying. Very interesting though. When he asks her, hey, guy says, "What do you want?" It says it in line 15. When it was her turn, lo biksha davar. She didn't ask for anything. Kim et asher yomar Hagag. Whatever he said, he told her, "You do whatever you want. I trust you." Yeah. So, okay, so it's very interesting. You're asking a good question. Well, why not? Every other woman is asking for whatever she wants. So there's two things that Chachamim say. First of all, it was Mordechai's idea not to say. It doesn't necessarily mean that she wanted to be the queen. I mean, maybe she felt like I'd rather die alone than to be with him. Maybe that's one side of it. The other side of it is that Chachamim explained to us is that Esther was innately a very tzniut woman. She was a very modest woman, and the Gemara goes at length to speak about that's her nature. So, in fact, they say that's part of the thing that you see her not talking about her nationality was because she was just modest and quiet, and it was her nature. Yeah, you want to put your best foot forward, but at the end of the day, that was who she was. There's a certain woman that's going to go on a date, that's going to go decked out. Other one's going to be more chill. Doesn't she want? Yeah, okay, this is who she is. And this is really what it was for Esther. That's who she was. That's who she was. She was a very tsinuah. She was a very tzniut woman. And guess what? Achashverosh loved her. It says that Achashverosh was with her. He fell in love. Megillat Esther. She was by far his number one choice. From all of the women, and he put the crown on her head, and now Esther just became the queen. And then he started to have a party. He knows how to throw parties. He started giving tax breaks, started telling everyone, in honor of my new queen, no taxes this year. In honor of this, we're going to have this party. In honor of it, and just giving out free food because of it's his marriage, it's his wedding. He can't invite everyone to another party. But what he did was he just sent everyone free gifts for this. Okay, that's the story of Esther becoming queen. A lot of questions about how things happen. Really, he chose her? Why did he choose her? She was gorgeous. She was really very beautiful. That's what it says. But it seems like maybe this keeping it a secret, the intrigue of who she was. I don't even know who she is. She wouldn't say where she was from. You're the king. Can't you just put a gun to her head and say show me your passport? Where were you born? I want to see your birth certificate. It seems, if Achashverosh really wanted to find out, he probably could have found out. He would ask her, she wouldn't answer. Maybe he liked it. Who knows? Who knows how Hashem played this into his mind? He ended up being with her. Okay, so fine. Then we get to the next section. It's a very short section. It's the section of Bigthan and Teresh. We know what the story is. One day happens to be that there are two guys working this is straight from Shakespeare. There's two guys in the back. They're whispering, and they say they were plotting to kill the king. And lo and behold, Mordechai finds out. So what does Mordechai do? Mordechai says, well, this situation of Achashverosh being the king and the queen being a Jew is a good situation for the Jewish people. Like, just thinking forward, they don't have the Beit HaMikdash. If they want to have the Beit HaMikdash built, wouldn't it be great to have the queen push forward for that agenda? So Mordechai right now is like trying to do everything he can to help support Esther in being a good queen and just being there. So when they say that there's a plot to kill Achashverosh, he's like, no. So what does he do? He goes and he calls Esther up and says, by the way, I heard that Bigthan and Teresh are trying to kill the king. She then goes and tells the king in the name of Mordechai. They go and they find out. They do some research. They come in. The FBI barges into their complex in the middle of the night. Sees they have all sorts of plots. They have a big sign of Achashverosh's head with a big X on it. They have like a bunch of ammo. They have like a map of like, and it's very clear that they wanted by Bakesh Davar Vayimatzeh. They found out that yes, indeed, these two people were planning to kill Achashverosh. They took them, they executed them, and they wrote it in a book that Mordechai told Esther that these two people were plotting to kill Achashverosh, and Mordechai, saved Achashverosh's life. That's like this mini story. These mini stories obviously are all going to culminate into very important details. So again, let me just explain like what some of the Gemara says. The Gemara says, how did Mordechai find out? So the Gemara says is that these two workers were not locals. They were not from Persia. They were not Persian. They were not speaking Persian. They were speaking this other language called Tursi. I don't know what Tursi is, but the point is that it's not a local language. So they were like two guys that were sent from their motherland to come serve the king and be the workers, and they didn't care about him. They wanted to kill him. And the Gemara says, but one of the requirements of sitting on the Sanhedrin of the Supreme Court, Mordechai was on the Supreme Court, that you have to know 70 languages. Not necessarily, according to Halakha, you don't need to know all 70, but you need to know multiple languages. Why? Because if two people have an argument and you don't know their language, it's very hard to be a judge. It's very hard to know the detail if you don't know the language, right? There are certain words that if you translate it, there's meaning lost in translation. So one of the requirements of judges is that they have to know many languages. In fact, it's not unheard of to know multiple languages. You know, some people like from the age of 6, they know 8 languages. There are many people that are just good with it. And this is what one of the requirements to be on the court of the Sanhedrin. And the Sanhedrin was the Supreme Court. Mordechai was on the Supreme Court. So he knew this language of Tursi. So this is how it happened to be that he found out. It's like, he doesn't look Tursi, he doesn't sound Tursi, he looks like a Persian, but he knows this. You know, it's like you're sitting on the train, and I mean, I have this because I'm very light-skinned. People don't know I'm Persian. So I hear people talking Persian, and they don't know. I mean, not everyone has this, but like, you know, you happen to be in a certain situation where you hear and you understand, and they have no idea. And the question is like, are you going to say like Chodafes when you leave or not? Like, it's like the question that you have to, it's like you're battling, you're just like giggling on the inside the whole time. But this is exactly what Mordechai was in. Mordechai was able to understand the language, and he told the queen. Okay. Oof. All right. Haman. Ooh. Let's get to the section of Haman. Now, Perigimo, the 3rd chapter. The Megillah tells us that in the 3rd chapter, after all of these things occurred, which our sages say, God sets up the cure for a situation already before the sickness, before the ailment, right? All of this has happened. Esther became the queen. Bigthan and Teresh plotted to kill Achashverosh. Mordechai found out. They told the thing. It was recorded. All of this happened. Why? Because after all of this had happened, now the ailment, the sickness is going to come. The king promotes and elevates Haman. Why? There's a bunch of different opinions as to why. Basically, maybe perhaps someone in his like high ranks, like his vice president or whoever, died. He wanted to give someone a promotion. He gave it to Haman. So Gidal HaMelech Haman, and it tells us that Haman Agagi. Haman is Agag, which I want to speak a little bit about that, because Agag is a character from Tanakh that we know from beforehand. But Haman is raised and elevated, and as he's elevated, one of the laws that was passed, very, very interesting law. I guess when you have power, you can do whatever you want. The law was that everyone has to bow down to him. Kacha, that's the law. When you see Haman, you have to bow down to him. That was the law. Okay, fine. So everyone was bowing down to him because that was the law. And you don't want to go against the law of the king, except for one man. Mordechai was going against this and not bowing down to him. Okay, so the Talmud, the Gemara asks the question of, like, why not? Was he not allowed to? Well, if he wasn't allowed to, why did all the other Jews bow down to him? Was he allowed to? Then why wasn't he doing it? So there's a lot of discussion on this, but basically, yeah, Haman, the Gemara says how there's actually like a history between Mordechai and Haman. They knew each other. It was like they had beef. Maybe they used to go to high school together, something like that. The Gemara actually says that in the past, at one point, very interesting, they were both army generals in Achashverosh's army. Okay, this isn't all the way. The story of Haman being promoted didn't happen on day one. It happened a couple years later, even after Esther became the queen. And Mordechai was an army general, and Haman was an army general. And part of the responsibilities of the army general is to make sure your battalion, your troops have food. You're given a bunch of food to the general, and you ration out the food. Haman didn't ration out the food correctly. Mordechai did, and they were in a situation where Haman's entire battalion had no food. So he came to Mordechai begging him. He says, "No, begging you. My people are going to die. The food is for them. Like, I rationed it out. I budgeted it. Did it in a smart way. You guys are going to die. What do you want from me? Go back to the king." And Haman says, "No, he's going to kill me." So basically, Mordechai made a deal with him that effectively he would be sold to Mordechai as a slave, is what the Midrash explains. That these two people, Mordechai said, "I'll take from my troop, I'll give you my food, I'll give you my bread, we'll split it up, but you need to pay me something." The guy doesn't even have bread. Pay him what? His life is on the line. So Haman says, "I'll give you my life. I'll be your slave. If we get out of this alive, we get out of the wars alive, I'll be yours." Okay, so now this is his slave, and he has a contract. This is the way Chachamim explained to us. He has a contract. And now Haman says everyone has to bow down to me. Bow down to you. You're like my dog. I'm not going to bow down to you. I own you. Okay, I apologize if anyone is a dog owner, because now do you actually own it? I don't know. Maybe it's like part of the family. So I'll take it back. You're my property is really what we'll say. I'm not going to bow down to you. So that's like part of it. Basically, the Gemara says how there has to be some more fuel here for what Mordechai was doing, and there's more. We'll see if there's more time. We can get back into it. But Haman becomes this position. He wants everyone to bow down to him. And then in line 5, on the top of 12, on page 1255, in line 5, it says, "Vayer Haman, ki ein Mordechai korei u'mishtachaveh lo." Haman himself sees that Mordechai is not bowing down to him. Vayimaleh Haman chema. So he becomes furious, filled with rage. Vayivez be'enav l'shloach yad Mordechai levado. And he says, "It would be too easy for me to just kill Mordechai. I could have that done. No, that's too simple. Levado, ki higidu lo et Mordechai." He knows that Mordechai is a Jew. So he decides, "I'm going to kill every Jew." Asher b'chol malchut Achashverosh am Mordechai, the entire kingdom. One Jew ticked him off, so he's going to kill every single Jew in the world. He has the power to. B'chodesh harishon hu chodesh Nisan. So in the month of Nisan, this is a timeline that most people don't know. So we're going to clarify the timeline. In the month of Nisan, Bishnat 12 l'melech Achashverosh, in Achashverosh's 12th year as a king, he peeled puru agaral, he casts lots. Lifnei Haman miyom liyom u'chodesh chodesh neimaser u'chodesh Adar, and he casts lots, and he decides that based on the lots, in the month of Adar, he's going to kill all the Jews. Month of Nisan is the which month of the year? Which number month? The first month of the year. Very good. Nisan, it actually says, "Chodesh harishon hu chodesh Nisan." In the first month of Nisan, he casts lots, and he decides that he's going to kill the Jews in the month of Adar, which is the 12th month of the year. So this decision was, and the decree to kill the Jews was, they had like a good 11-month heads up. Okay, and now the next section, he now needs to get permission from the king. Okay, this is a very, very, very famous section. Let's discuss it, and we'll elaborate based on what Chachamim tell us. Yeah, I just want to see if we're going to cover everything. I think we'll be able to cover everything. Okay, so line 8. So, they're having a quick catch up, maybe water cooler talk, talking to the king and the Haman, rich people. What are they going to talk about? He says, Yeshno Am Echad, there's one nation. Yeshno means there is. Yeshno Am Echad, there's one nation, unnamed. Mefuzar, it's scattered, Umforad ben Ha'amim, and it's separated amongst the people, amongst the nations. Small, scattered minority people. They're scattered everywhere. They're different. Their laws are different. They follow different laws. They don't listen to the king's laws. And the king, you have no benefit to let them live. You don't get anything from them. If you agree, let's just write to get rid of them. We'll just write to kill all of them. And here's 10,000 silver coins. So first of all, there was no reason given to kill them. Instead, the reason was, if I kill them, you don't lose anything. Is that a reason to do a genocide? That if they are killed, you don't lose anything for it? So based on this, I'm going to ask you, poll, did Achashverosh know that Haman is talking about the Jewish people? No. Any yeses? Yes. Based on this line, is there a reason to assume that he knows who they're talking about? Very good. Okay, exactly. Based on this line, it very clearly sounds that Haman is leaving out who they want to do this genocide to. And he's leaving that detail out. But again, you have to view this from the lens of this book is written by Esther, a Jew, who is the queen of the kingdom, and the book is being published by the kingdom. You know how bad it would look if Achashverosh said, yes, kill the Jews. Achashverosh doesn't want that. In fact, the whole thing later on, as we're going to see, is like Achashverosh plays as though he doesn't even know what's going on. Or maybe he doesn't. Maybe he innocently says, what are you talking about? Who said? Haman? Haman wants to do this? Oh, okay, kill Haman. So it could be that he had no idea. This is where you have the Gemara. The Gemara comes in and tells us, don't you dare for a second think that Achashverosh didn't know. Achashverosh knew full well. There is, and I want to read this to you, but there's reasons why they're saying this. First of all, in Sefer Ezra, it talks about how there was a point that the Jewish people started to rebuild the Beit HaMikdash. Recall, we're after the destruction of the first Beit HaMikdash. They wanted to build the Beit HaMikdash. They started. The name of the king that told them to start, I believe it was Koresh. I get confused between the Koresh, the Kurushas, and the Daryushas. There's a lot of them, but I'm pretty sure it was Koresh who said you could go build the Beit HaMikdash. Actually, I'll tell you right now. Right now I'm talking about the one before. There's another one after. The Chachamim say is the son. That's correct. So here we go. Daryavish Amadi Koresh. So it was Koresh who was the one who said, go rebuild the Beit HaMikdash. And they started. Until what happened? United Nations got involved. The United Nations got involved. It tells that this is straight up in the text of Tanakh, Nehemiah, Ezra, and it tells us that there was the Shomronim, the locals, that they said, hold on a second. The Jews left here, and then the Shomronim went and they claimed the land. And now their claim is, the Jews were never here, this doesn't belong to them. This land belongs to us. And so when the Jewish people started building the Beit HaMikdash, by edict of the king, permission from the king Koresh, they started saying, oh, do you know? They went to the Koresh and they said, they're going to start a rebellion. It didn't work. Then they went to the next king, who happened to be a king by the name of Achashverosh. Based on the way Chachamim explain, is that they tell him, if the Jews, they go there, they're going to take over, it's going to start a revolt, they're going to start their own nation, they're going to go against you. Achashverosh says, okay, I don't need this. Okay, halt the building of the Beit HaMikdash. So this, based on what our Talmud tells us, based on the text, Achashverosh was the one to stop the plans of building the Beit HaMikdash. He full well knew about the Jewish people, and the fact that this wasn't on his mind, the Gemara says, bogus. I don't believe it. Let me read to you the way the Gemara says the mashal. Yeah, it's a very nice mashal. I was reading this. Here we go. Amar Rabbi Abba, Mashal da Achashverosh v'Haman lama davar domeh. Let me give you a parable to what the situation was between Achashverosh and Haman. Haman wanted to kill the Jewish people. Achashverosh wanted to get rid of the Jewish people, but he didn't want to kill them. It's not good for a king to kill his own people, but he didn't want them. So what is it like? It's the Shnei Bnei Adam. Echad haya lo tel b'toch sadehu, v'lechad haya lo charitz b'toch sadehu. Two guys, two people. One of them in his field, he has this huge pile of dirt. I don't know how it got there, but he has a huge pile of dirt. The other one in his backyard, what does he have? A huge ditch, like a pit in the ground. So what happens? The guy who has a ditch in his house is like going in every single chat and every Facebook group saying, where can I buy some dirt? Trying to find out where he can get some dirt from. Then and the guy with the heap, the pile, is just going everywhere, massively saying like, anyone can use some dirt for their construction. Anyone, I'm willing to pay if anyone wants to clear this up. You're calling every gardener in the world and say, get this out of here. So what happens? One day, he's davegu, they become a zivuk. All of a sudden you have a shidduch. This guy meets that guy. He says, let me buy your dirt from you. And he says, buy. I'll bring it to you. What do you mean, buy it from me? You don't buy it. I'm willing to pay you. I'm willing to carry the dirt myself to come give it to you. And the Gemara says this is exactly what the situation was between Haman and Achashverosh. And the Gemara elaborates that Haman, when he was saying this, he was making it very clear. You don't, as a king, you don't just listen to someone say that I want to do a genocide of a certain people, and you say, fine. Now, how does he say fine? Let's read it, and I want to tell you the way Chachamim tell it to us. So he asks for the money, line 10. Ooh, line 10. Okay, anyone know what a signet ring is? Very good. Yeah, you ever you get one of these invitations, sometimes you get them on some of these weddings, and I end up ripping the envelope. I feel bad, but that's how it is. You get the envelope and you want to close it. And instead of the guy going like that, what they do is on the envelope, you take a piece of mud, you put a piece of mud on it, and then you stamp it. And that stamp is like a seal, but also that seal has the logo or the signet of the king, okay? So it's basically he has a ring. On his ring, maybe it's his face or something, and it writes from the office of, from the desk of Achashverosh, King Achashverosh the Great. And what he did was, in order to pass an edict, you need to have that seal, that stamp. It's like a notary or whatever. You need to have that stamp. So what did Achashverosh do? He said, you know what, here you go. Take this, write whatever you want, print whatever you want. It's like a blank check. You could do whatever you want, go. And the money that you said you're going to give me, 10,000 silver coins, keep the change. I don't need your money. This is what Chachamim say, you don't need to pay me to get rid of them. Keep the money. Thank you. Take care of this. So Baruch Hashem, and I found a volunteer to take care of my dirty work for me. So listen to what the Gemara says, one of the most beautiful lines in all of the Gemara. The king takes off his ring from his hand. Amar Rabbi Abba bar Kahana, this rabbi, Rabbi Abba, tells us, Gedolah Hasarat Tabat, the removal of the signet ring from the hand of Achashverosh and giving it to Haman, Yoter me'arba'im u'shmoneh nevi'im u'shvesheva nevi'ot shinabu lahem le'Yisrael. It was more effective of helping the Jewish people to do teshuvah and pray to God. The Achashverosh was more effective in helping us to pray than on the other side of the scale is 48 male prophets, 7 female prophets. Prophetesses. It's a hard word to say. Prophetesses. All of the prophets and prophetesses of the Jewish people, you take all of everything they've ever done and all of the effects that they had on all the Jewish people to get them to do better, all of the shurim they gave, all of the speeches they gave, all of the times they gave musar to people, you take it, all of it, and the effectiveness that they had, and then the removal of Achashverosh's signet ring to give it to Haman, which one was more effective of gathering the troops to do teshuvah? Achashverosh was. Gemara is almost saying this is it's a little bit sad, that this is why you have someone who, when someone hates us, it's extremely effective. Yirmiyahu Hanavi, you know what it tells us? Yirmiyahu Hanavi, when the Beit HaMikdash was destroyed, Jeremiah Jerry the Navi, Yirmiyahu. When Yirmiyahu Navi was telling people to do teshuvah, because if they don't do teshuvah, the Beit HaMikdash is destroyed. What do they do to him? Anyone know? They beat him up. Who is this Jew? Shove his head in the toilet. This is what they would do to our prophets. They threw him in prison. They actually beat him up. So this is what the Jewish people do when a Jewish prophet tells them to do teshuvah. But when a non-Jewish king says, do whatever you want to Haman, the immediate effects of us to do teshuvah, it's a scary thought. It really is a scary thought. By the way, this is a ladies program. So just for the ladies, who are the 7 prophetesses? Sheva Neviot. Devorah, good. Abigail, Miriam, Sarah, who? Hannah, Rivka? No. Okay. So now, honestly, I was just listening. I was just saying what you guys were saying. I don't know, but let me read to you what the Gemara said. Man Ninu. The Gemara says, who were they? Okay, I'm going to say it now. Sarah, Miriam, Devorah, Hannah, Abigail, Huldah, Esther. Okay, so how could you remember these? I don't know. I'm still trying to figure out a way to remember them. But this is, I think I once came up with an acronym. So we know for sure that there's 2 of them. 2 of them have the names of an animal. Devorah is the name of a bee. Devorah is like a bee. Like a bumblebee is called a Devorah. And Huldah is a weasel. That was her name. That was actually her name. So Devorah and Huldah, those 2 names. Okay, so that's it. I mean, I didn't name her. What do you want? That was her name. Okay, so those are the 2 names. Then Sarah is one of our first mother. Miriam, actually the Torah calls her Vatikach Miriam HaNeviyah. The Torah tells us she's a prophetess. Sarah, Miriam, Devorah, we said Hannah, Abigail ends up, David HaMelech marries her, and Esther from our story. Okay, if you could figure out a way to remember all of these, let me know. I usually like coming up with acronyms. All you got to do is just, and I can use ChatGPT. I'm going to say, help me to come up with an acronym to remember this. It's going to give me a word. Okay, we'll try it tonight. Okay, so these are the 7 prophetesses. What time is it? 9 o'clock. Okay, if it's okay, I'm just going to take a few more minutes. Okay, I wanted to do a little bit more. Okay, let me do one more thing. Okay, I'm going to take 5 more minutes. I'm just going to speak about it a little bit outside. Okay, so as I already mentioned, the text tells us that Mordechai's great-grandfather was a man by the name of Kish. Right? Mordechai ben Yair is his father, ben Yair, ben Shim'i, ben Kish. Okay, his great-grandfather. That name, Kish, comes up in Tanakh as, it tells us explicitly, Shaul HaMelech, the first king of the Jewish people, his father is Kish. Kish was from the tribe of Binyamin. Mordechai is from the tribe of Binyamin. It says Ish Yamini. But the timeline doesn't seem to work that this is the same man, because we're talking about 1,000 years prior. So like I said, I think the opinion that, I think the one that I like that fits is that this was the Kish, the same Kish. It's just that you're doing a ... By saying Mordechai was the son of Yair, the son of Shimi, the son of, you go back 1,000 years, he was the same as a Kish, the family of Shaul HaMelech. You know, like Mordechai's great-grandfather was brothers with Shaul. Okay. On the other hand, you have Haman, Hamedata, ben Hamedata Agagi. He was the Agagite. Agag. Who was Agag? So in chapter 15 of Shmuel Aleph, which I wanted to do it maybe next week, or depending on our time, we could do it. Chapter 15 of Shmuel Aleph, it tells us the story. Shaul HaMelech, the king, is tasked with the role of killing Amalek. See, this is something we read 2 weeks ago, a few weeks ago, Parashat B'Shalach. The Jewish people, when we left Egypt, we were like sort of minding our own business, chilling, doing nothing, just like hanging out in the desert, eating man and complaining. And when we were there, all of a sudden, the family of Amalek, the nation of Amalek, who was our cousin, Amalek was the son from the family of the grandson of Esau. So it's like one of our cousins. Amalek attacked us. But when he attacked us he wasn't declaring war on us. It wasn't a war. It was, he attacked the weak, helpless people, at a bus stop. The children that are at the end of the camp that are completely defenseless. The women that were not able to fight a war against them. It wasn't waging war against Yehoshua, who was our military general. It was going to put terror into the nation. And they were successful. And what the Torah tells us in Parashat B'Shalach, and then again in Parashat Ki Tetzeh, is that you're going to have many wars. Try to make peace with people. The Torah tells us that we don't want to fight wars. But Amalek, just letting you know, just giving you some information, they're not interested in having peace with you. So the only way that you could win against Amalek is by killing them, by completely making sure that when there is someone that wants to kill you and wants nothing else other than for you to die, the only way that you could live is by killing them. That's it. You could build as many things as you want to protect yourself, but ultimately that's their only goal. This is the only case in the Torah where it tells us, like, you need to go kill them, this specific people. It doesn't tell us with other things, right? For example, there are nations in the land of Israel that we were supposed to get rid of, but if they wanted peace, we didn't kill them. We didn't have to kill. But with Amalek, there's something else. Now, this is very hard for a good person to accept. Like, why do you want to hurt me? Like, for what? I don't even know who you are. For what do you want to just go drive into a bus stop and kill kids? For what? What do you gain from this? Like, what's wrong with you? This is what Amalek did. And what Hashem is telling us in this mitzvah is that it doesn't make sense, that they just want to kill you. And the only way to combat it is to defend yourself by killing them. Okay, it's something that it's very hard for Jews to accept, because we don't want to hear that. And it also was very hard for Shaul HaMelech to accept. Shaul HaMelech, when he was the first king of the Jewish people, he was tasked with, okay, go take revenge, and not for the sake of beating them, but for the sake of self-defense, you need to kill Amalek. So what does he do? What the text tells us is that he goes, gathers his nation, they fight against Amalek, and they kill everyone. Except they don't kill the animals. Like, there's a bunch of sheep and cows and whatever. And they were told to kill them, and they didn't. There's a Tanakh here. You put it back. It's okay. Okay, I looked at it recently, so I know. That they were supposed to kill all of the animals, and they didn't. They were supposed to kill the king, and they didn't. What was the name of the king of Amalek? Agag. They were supposed to kill him and they didn't. And Shaul HaMelech is like so happy because he killed and he was successful. Why kill all of the animals? What did the cow do? What did the sheep do? You tell me. Why were they tasked to kill the animals? Okay, very good. So this is like what a lot of the Midrashim tell us, that maybe they knew how to transform and get themselves into the animals. But another very basic reason is that, so these are all valid reasons, but I think even stronger is that Hashem wanted to make it clear, you're not killing them to take their money. You're not killing them to take their sheep and their cows. You're killing them because they want to kill you. And if your goal is to kill people to take their money, that's a terrible lesson to be learned. And if I'm telling you to go kill this nation, I want to make it clear to you, I'm not telling you this to do this to find oil in their country. I'm not doing this to go get money from them. So if you kill them and then keep their money, then like tomorrow you're going to go kill the next guy because he has money. And that's not the lesson that Hashem wants to teach us. So Hashem says, this is very unique to this case, and I want you not to touch any of their money. Kill all of their animals. Don't even be tempted to take it. Why? Because it's not about the money. It's about self-defense. It's a very tricky lesson that has to be conveyed to them. What did Shaul do? Shaul didn't kill the animals, and he didn't kill the king. The prophet Shmuel HaNavi gets a prophecy from God saying, what happened? He was supposed to, this was the king. Shmuel HaNavi anointed him, as selected him, or was through him was anointed as the king. So what happened to your king? Hashem says, he was supposed to kill everyone. He was supposed to kill the animals. He's supposed to kill the king. So Shmuel says, okay, I got this. And he goes in there the next morning, and he comes and he sees Shaul HaMelech, the king. And Shaul HaMelech, the king, sees him and says, I did it. I did what God asked me to do. He says, oh yeah? What is the cows I hear in the background? I'm like, moo, moo. I hear a cow in the background. I hear a sheep in the background. What are all these animals that I hear in the background? It's like the old McDonald over here. What is all these sounds? And then he says, oh, you don't know what happened. The people were saying, well, we should keep these animals to bring them as korbanot. So I listened to the people. Shmuel is like, this is even worse than what I thought. Not only did you do something wrong, but you're blaming the people, and you're blaming the people by saying they wanted to keep it, to give it as a sacrifice to God. And he says this line, he's like, what do you think God wants more? Sacrifices or for you to listen to him? It's like, oh, wow. He says this sharp line of, God told you to kill the animals, and your response is, the people said, let's give the animals as sacrifices to God. He doesn't want it. And then he says, what about the king? He says, no, I didn't want to kill him, whatever reason. So basically, because of this, God strips away the kingdom from Shaul HaMelech. Shaul HaMelech is then told on the spot, he's no longer going to be the king of the Jewish people. It's devastating, because he was just having mercy on the king. You know, and there's like commentators that explain, it's like almost like a king to a king type of like treatment. Like, I'm a king, I'm not going to kill the king. I killed those old people. Like, let him live. Just leave him in prison, something. But he was very upset. Hashem was upset that he didn't kill the king. Okay? Why is this so important? So then what ends up happening? Shmuel, that day, the prophet, kills Agag, the king of Amalek. It's like this crazy scene. It's actually like they should make maybe they shouldn't. I was going to say they should make a movie out of it. So it's really like a crazy scene. Why is this so important? Because I have a question for you. Haman was from Agag, right? It says, Haman ben Hamedata ha-Agagi. He was from Agag. If they killed everyone except for Agag, and then the next morning they killed Agag, how did Agag have a child? Sorry? From before, but that would be Amalek. And the Shaul said, I killed every single Amaleki. So yeah, I guess you could say he escaped. That's not what Chachamim tell us. Chachamim say that night, when they had Agag in prison, he got a woman pregnant. Who? I saw different versions of it. One of them says there was another prisoner. They threw him in prison, and there was another woman prisoner. Another one was like, no, it was just some random woman that he met somehow. There's other answers. But however it happened, be it as it may, he got a woman pregnant that night. And from that night came Haman. So this is like this scary thought. But my question is, Shaul HaMelech was having mercy on Agag. But this misplaced mercy allowed for Haman to come out. And then Haman decided to do mass genocide to kill all of the Jewish people. When we have in our text here that it's Mordechai ben Kish against Haman from Agag, the Torah, the text is screaming at you that this story is a rematch of that story. And it's telling you that because of Shaul's failure to kill the king, we're faced with this now. It's the very sad truth that there are certain types of people that having mercy on them is actually being cruel to innocent people. There's a line that Chachamim say is that when someone has mercy on people that are cruel, you're effectively having cruelty on people that deserve to have your mercy. Again, it's not something we like thinking about, but this is the important lesson. The whole lesson of Amalek, that there are certain types of people that, although you don't want to believe it, they don't want Jews here. They don't want the Jewish people in the world. There's certain type of people. Most are not like that. Most want to live with us in peace. Most of them you can work with, you can have diplomatic relations with, you can talk to them, you can give them something, you can give them a reason for them to say okay. But there are some that there's no end to it. And when you have mercy on that person, what you're doing is like later the cruelty is going to come back to the entire Jewish people. There's like a crazy, there's a lot of discussion on this line, but Shalom Edah, just to think about an example, let's say there's someone with a gun and he's about to kill 100 innocent people, and you have a gun in your hand, and let's say you're fully protected, and you have the ability to kill him, which would save these 100 people's lives, and you say, I don't want to be a murderer, I have mercy on him. The question, and then you might say, well, I'm not the one deciding to kill the others. Yeah, you're not the one deciding to kill the others, but you're the one deciding not to kill the one that doesn't deserve your mercy. This is, I remember, I'll tell you like this. I remember when I was in yeshiva in Israel, I was at a Hesder yeshiva, Like the people in the yeshiva were both in yeshiva and also in the army. We had both. And that was the first time we were going. There was like it was 2008, 2009. There was shuluch shot. Started to become, there was something going on. And we had people from the yeshiva going, reserves going to the army. And I remember the Rosh Yeshiva got up once, and as I was like, I'm like munching on my Doritos. Here, like an American, my like naot, right? They're like, I'm just here doing like nothing. And the Rosh Yeshiva basically said how you have a responsibility, you have a mitzvah, and you have to protect all of the Jewish people. You have to protect their lives. And if there's a time where you have to do something to defend and to protect the Jewish people, having mercy at that point is actually a form of cruelty. We're not going to kill everyone, chas v'shalom. We don't want that. But with what was going on at that time, there were Jewish people getting killed left and right. They needed to go and to do something to defend us. And at that point, there's no room for mercy, because mercy is actually a form of cruelty. So this, what Esther is telling us, as amazing as it is, by Esther invoking the name of Kish and invoking the name of Agag, is trying to tell you that, like, by the way, this was our fault. This whole thing happened because we had misplaced mercy. Esther was the one who risked her life to fight against Amalek, to defend the Jewish people against Amalek. She was the one that won this war for us. She didn't ever have to lift a blade herself, but she won this war for us. And as the brains, the mastermind behind this war, she's telling us that, like, this war should never have happened. It should have been avoided because we had an opportunity. Again, you don't like thinking about this, but you understand that this is the exception to the rule, and there has to be clarity of mind. When someone wants to hurt you and they want nothing else, and this is the story of Amalek. This is the story of Amalek that the Torah tells us, Timche et zecher Amalek. The only way you could do is to get rid of them. Okay, there's a lot more of nice. It's like a gloomy way to end. So let me just end off with like one nice thought. What Chachamim tell us is that actually everything here is gloomy. There's nothing. No, I'm kidding. There's one nice thing, is that Chachamim tell us that when Haman rolled the dice to see what month should this happen. Anyone remember what month did they roll the? Okay, very good. Like Jeopardy, you rang the bell even before I finished the question. The month that they cast the lots was in the month of Nisan. Okay, and it landed on the month of Adar. So the Gemara says, like, Haman was happy because the month of Adar is the month that Moshe Rabbeinu died. And Moshe Rabbeinu died on the 7th of Adar, and he was happy. Oh, Moshe Rabbeinu died. It was a good time for doing bad things to the Jewish people. The Gemara says, but he doesn't realize that also Moshe Rabbeinu was born in the month of Adar. Moshe Rabbeinu was born. And the Gemara says that you think the death of Moshe Rabbeinu is a bad thing. It's not. Moshe Rabbeinu lived a very successful life, teaching Torah, helping the Jewish people, defending the Jewish people. His death is not a tragedy. His death was a success. And so Haman's perspective is that we're only in this world, olam hazeh only. If Moshe dies in this world in the month of Adar, and Moshe dies, then that means it's a month of bad luck for the Jewish people. So he was happy to get in the month of Adar. The Gemara says, what are you talking about? We believe in the next world. We believe that Moshe Rabbeinu, on the day of his death, should have been the most proud and successful man in the world for what he has accomplished. To leave this world like that in a positive way of what you've accomplished. So what the Gemara says is that it's actually a celebration of Moshe Rabbeinu's life. And that's when he was born. The month of Adar is the month that he was born, meaning all of the potential that he had when he was born was fulfilled. And so the fact that he died on the same day is only a reason to celebrate, because he's fulfilled his true potential. So the idea of what the Gemara is telling us is that what Haman was in this mood that, if they died, then it's a bad thing. No, there's a lot more in this world than just trying to survive and be in this world. It's what we accomplish in this world. It's what we do in this world, and we believe in the next world, in the Olam Haba. And the fact that Moshe Rabbeinu lived such a successful life, and he was born in the month of Adar, and even he died in the month of Adar, but he died from living a successful life. It was a good luck. It was actually a siman tov for us. Okay, so just to let you know, next week, Be'ezrat Hashem, we are going to speak about the Fauda mission. Right? I don't know if Fauda, it's just a word, but Esther is now going to go into enemy territory. And why is it enemy territory? If he's the king, we're going to speak about it. Esther is now going to risk her life. She's going to go in. She's going to there's certain conversations that are like, there's like miscommunication. It's really like, there's a lot of back and forth. Ezra Hashem, that's what we're going to speak about next week. Esther going in, risking her life, decisions that she made, how brilliant she was with decisions that she made, and how she ultimately ends up saving Am Yisrael. Okay? We'll pick up next week. Have a great week, everyone. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom.